And Alex, nice to meet you, my friend. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, mate. I'm feeling very clear, present, alive.
Alive. Well, it's always a good thing. Better feeling alive than half dead, like a
Yeah.
lot of people. Um, yeah, I obviously I just it was quite weird how the universe works, and you're a big believer in that, I'm sure. Um, that you posted literally yesterday about you being on day 5 of your fast, your water fast, and I'd
Yeah.
literally just broken my 48 hours. Literally, as I saw your post, I was like, "Oh, I've literally just eaten a sweet baked potato for
Class.
the first time." And fasting has been very much a new thing for me.
Mm.
It's and it came about with the science and the Japanese scientist that discovered the sort of autophagy element of within things. He's just been awarded the Nobel Prize.
Oh wow.
So the reason why I started was purely from an autophagy purpose, as well as sort of a bit of a discipline exercise.
Mm.
And it is a very much a mindful exercise in terms of I control what I do rather than my urges and my impulses control
Mm.
me. Um, and yeah, I must admit, like I can't do 6 days. I mean, you're at 6.5 now, aren't you? Or
Yeah, yeah,
thereabouts, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but four is the most I managed, four and a bit. And it was a 3 a.m. wake up for a bowl of crunchy nut. That's how much it was. Just
Yeah.
got to the point where I'd had enough. Um, but for those that don't know who you are, what you do, and we can get into the fasting a little bit later on. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are
Mm.
in 3 words or less.
Not in 3 years or less, yeah.
No. You can't do that. It was a satirical, flippant remark.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Wow, who am I? I am a man who loves to help other people in this life, and I do this in many channels. Family first. So I'm a family man. I've got 3 children, a wife. As a family, we're very holistic in our ways. In my practice, I'm a trainee therapist, so I'm nearly qualified as a psychotherapist. I work currently with stroke survivors and people with traumatic brain injury.
Oh wow.
Before that, I was coaching. I was in the military for 10 years. I worked within bomb disposal, and I was in this Royal Signals doing telecoms and electronic warfare sort of things.
Wow.
And that's like sort of had a compound effect on, how I practice and who I am right now as in this present moment. All the challenging experiences I've had. For example, after I left the military, I became a crack addict
Wow.
for like a year and a half, maybe, or something like that. I was in rehab then for like strong PTSD, post-military service, just in fight or flight, really arguing with my life experience, wanted to be different, but couldn't stop using drugs, alcohol. Through my recovery journey, I found faith, really. And what I mean by that is like I found a connection to something bigger than me. I found out that it wasn't just me, it was
Yeah,
something
yeah.
else, which was co-creating with me and allowing me to create my own experience in this life. So that sent me deeper into a path of psychedelic work and working with psychedelics, because I was like 2 years sober in AA, and I was thinking, why am I thinking about magic mushrooms? I'm 2 years clean. Like, is this like insanity?
Yeah.
I know this is deeper. I know I'm deepening now on the original question you asked me, but
No, go for it. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
like the beauty of it is I've got one of my good friends, Ollie. I'm pretty sure he was in the Signals, and that sort of coming out. I obviously I didn't know that about you in terms of the crack stuff, and I've had the conversation recently with one of my friends who's a psychedelic therapist over in California,
Mm,
Erica, and that that addiction. I never knew that crack was rife in this country. It wasn't a sort of a thing on my radar. I mean, growing up, there was this, especially getting into the young teens, the things were cannabis, pills,
mm,
MDMA, ecstasy, and cocaine. They were the sort of
same.
things that floated about. There was nothing, anybody talked about crack or hard heroin or anything along those lines. It was like, whoa, I'm all right. I'll stay away from that one. That's for,
Yeah.
down and outers. But then I got told relatively recently off one of my friends who will be coming on the pod, Nico. He's a hypnotherapist, and he's dealing with a lot of addiction at the minute. A lot of people, not him himself, but a lot of people coming to him with addiction problems. And crack is so rife everywhere, like on your doorstep. It's so surprising. But was it a direct result of trying to transition from military life into civilian life that kind of you were maybe looking for an escape? If I've got that wrong, call me out on it. But is that why, or was there a different reason?
It's definitely an escape. I'm an escape artist by I think by mechanism. So I've learned that I'm avoidant to a lot of things. So like if you look at attachment styles, I feel like I avoid my emotions, and I feel like this fast now was me facing, the whole picture.
Yeah.
So I'm learning, like, I'm not scared of hunger.
Yeah.
And one of my main things was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to cope with this feeling of hunger.
It's surprising how after that, the first 24 hours is the hardest. That's the most difficult thing, because you're breaking what your normal cycle is. And then after the 24 hours, this time for me, it was a lot more difficult because I kind of left it a little bit too long between fasts. But you get that sudden surge of, oh, I don't need to eat. I don't feel hungry. I don't want anything to eat. And I know we spoke is that the only thing that kills me is the mouth taste. There's nothing in your mouth. It's like constantly, and it becomes stale, and it's just like, it's a bit boring. And then I always think, well, if I put a little bit of cordial in my water, I'm cheating. And it's got calories in and sugars, and that's it. It kind of ruins the whole reason of why I'm doing it. But if there was like some sort of cordial that could just take a little bit of taste away. Drinking salt water kind of gets boring after about 5 hours anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sort of discipline and facing yourself, and I know there's loads of people that talk about it. I know Joe Rogan talks about it when he mentions about ice baths. He has to speak about it. Goggins talks about his inner bitch and whatnot. And that sort of facing yourself and seeing the worst parts of you and the little part that nobody sort of admits to themselves who they actually are deep down.
Yeah.
Stuff like practices like fasting and psychedelics and the mushrooms, like you mentioned, that's what it kind of holds that magnifying glass up, and you can't look away.
Yeah, you can't, can you?
So you mentioned faith, and going from sort of, addiction to it. Was it faith that broke the addiction, or was it what happened in terms of coming away from that?
Yeah, I would say I've got two experiences in life here. One without creator or without God, and one with God.
Yeah.
And it's like a contrast. It's like two different lenses I'm looking through. So I tried recovery, and this is how arrogant I was in recovery. I went to all the meetings. I was like, that's not right.
Yeah.
There's like, I'm not praying to no one. I'm not doing this stuff that you're suggesting. All you people who've got years sober, I'm not listening to you. I've got it my own way. And that's the arrogance. I still wasn't really at rock bottom, even though I'd lost pretty much all the stuff that I owned, and I had no job, and I was in rehab on like employment support benefit in Liverpool. So I wasn't, I had no family around me, no missus, like everything finished. And it took me probably about 14 months and one more relapse to be like, why can't I follow basic instructions and just listen to these people, even though, there's something in me which is trying to resist this? Is that just the addiction as well? It's just trying to keep me.
It's really strict. Like the reason why I'm smiling, and even though it's it's a bit of a somber experience, is the fact that I've had a very similar interaction with one of my previous therapists, Imogen. She was a EMDR therapist.
Yeah.
Amazing, like completely changed my life. And I remember I had one weekend where I drank far too much, I'd taken cocaine, done stupid stuff. And I remember opening up to her saying, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Every time that I get drunk. It's somebody that I'm not, and it's something that I don't want to do, or I always look back on it with regret. And her words to me were, "You haven't had enough yet," which is quite shocking to hear off your therapist, who's meant to sort of be there for you and support you. And yeah, you can get off it. Don't worry. It was like, no, you haven't had enough. And me being me, like you said, I have had enough. I'll do it my way. I've had enough. And she was bang on the fucking money. I hadn't had enough, and it took me, I think, a further 2 years to realize this is it. I am now at that limit. I am now had enough. And I don't get me wrong, it wasn't like yourself in terms of crack and stuff. And I wouldn't necessarily say I had a problem. But two, three cans of beer of an evening after work to chill out doesn't sort of seem like a problem, and to a lot it isn't. But you do that over a span of 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years. That's a hell of a lot of alcohol, which is in essence poison. And then you have your binges on your weekends. 4 or 5 pints of an evening, 6, 7 cans with football on a Saturday, and and get to that point of having enough. So when did you realize that was it? It was enough. That's what you'd had. That's what all you could take. That you'd done.
I'm married to. I was going to say I'm married to a woman called Leah, my wife, basically. I was seeing her. I was speaking to her when I was like in rehab. We were just communicating over Instagram, and then when I got out of rehab, we got in a relationship, and then maybe a year into that relationship, I relapsed, and I was just in my mum's house, in my bedroom, in my old bedroom, smoking crack on my own. Like I had a roll of foil in my car outside, and Elle came and knocked on the door, and I was like, oh my god, she's come to like interrupt my crack session. That was my main thought process. And she's like, I know you're in there, I've seen the foil in your car, like, because I was just lying to her basically, because we finished, and that whole week I'd been using crack, but I just said to her like I went offline, basically went dark shadow, into the shadows. And then she came in and she was sat there, and this is a woman I love, and I was just looking at her, I couldn't feel nothing for her at all. Just like all I could think about was going back upstairs and smoking another pipe, and I just couldn't wait for her to leave. I was like, I can't wait for you to leave this place so I can go and smoke my crack again. And then after that experience, I was like, whoa, I am completely catapulted into the shadows. I'm in a dark place, and that like fractured me, because I was like, who am I now? I can't even feel love that I felt. Maybe last week I felt like I love this person, and now I can't even feel nothing for this person. So that means I'm completely empty, like, of love, starved of love. And then I made a commitment then to go to AA and do things as they were suggested, the step work, and I got a sponsor straight away. And I'm not in AA anymore because it doesn't align with the things I practice. But I just got on my knees, man, in the middle of this public park with an older gentleman, and he was like, "Just get on your knees, man. Like, why not?" I was like, "Fucking hell, all right." Got on my knees. I was like, "Just fucking please, God, help me create a sober life. Help me create, meaningful, rich, nourishing things that I can attract into my life and just be myself and be healed from this affliction that I've experienced." And like, I could tell over a few weeks that my energy was increasing, and I felt like more clarity, more grounded, more like I was like, if you take a different supplement, right, and you've been taking something, it doesn't work for you, that it's effective, innit? What's effective and what's not effective.
You don't need a blood test or whatever. No. Even if it's placebo, for instance, you know for a fact that it feels different. 100%.
It's like giving someone 2 capsules. Give someone a placebo and then give them an actual microdose of psilocybin. They know what's going on.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I was on the psilocybin of AA. I was on the psilocybin of AA, receiving whatever connection that I've been cut off from because of my own disbelief or my own atheism. And I just think atheism is a trauma response. I think of that.
You know what? It's been... how you don't mind me, how old were you when this was all happening?
28, 29.
Yeah,
I'm 35 now.
I found it really strange, um, I must look like a madman in the morning when I walk the dog, because I walk through the woods, and if anybody sees me, it looks like I'm talking to myself. And in essence, I am, but I'm not. I'm doing an audio diary, so I'm doing an audio journal, which helps me to do whilst I'm walking. And I had this sort of thought process this morning in terms of God, religion, spiritual awakenings, whether that be prophets, or ancient prophets, or anybody that sort of ascends to the level of what's called enlightenment. And I've always found it strange how it's never somebody that's 19, 20, 21, 22. And then at the same time, it very rarely happens when you're 60 or 50 or 60 or 70. It always tends to happen between late 20s and early 30s, is when something within a man or a woman sort of changes, whether that's they've experienced things in life that have pushed them to that point of looking outside themselves rather than an insular existence, or whether I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. It was just an observation that I thought, how strange that my own sort of spiritual awakenings happened probably from 33, 32, 33 up to now. I'm 37, and it, you take into account sort of Jesus's life. Jesus was sort of late 20s, 30s when that all sort of took place in terms of the stories of him. And whether you believe in it or not, whatever you believe in, the sort of that middle age of sort of late 20s, early 30s is when this sort of stuff starts to happen. And yeah, it was all about sort of religion and whatnot this morning. And I grew up Catholic, quite strict Catholic. So confession every Wednesday, church every Sunday. I was an altar boy up to the age of like 14. And I, like you said, with atheism, I turned away from religion because I kind of got to the age where I can't get on board with this. This is it's weird, and I still maintain that fact of sort of, if it helps people, it helps people. But I look at things objectively, and people singing a hymn in a building all together, from an objective standpoint, is a very strange behavior. If you saw like loads of dogs howling together, like in a room at one dog, it's a very weird thing to observe. And yeah, I think I went into that atheist, and it's almost like a default. If you don't believe in God, then you're an atheist. Or if you don't believe in a higher power, then you're an atheist. And ultimately, that sort of default, like you said, that trauma response of it's a very lonely place to be, I think.
I agree.
And it's a very difficult place to be. And I very much understand that sort of gravity towards faith, just from that sort of community and that sort of oneness aspect. So you're on your knees in the middle of this open space, and you're asking God for help. What? And I'm presuming, because you sat talking to me now, that he did.
Yeah. It was quite a strong series of events. I felt the power of it, man. I was like, this is like undeniable that I'm receiving something through my act of prayer, my openness to receive something from something higher than me. And whether that's imagined or not, isn't manifestation a process of imagination, a visualization, and then it appears in your life. So like there's this guy I was listening to the other day. He said, "Oh, I can prove your God is imaginary." I was like, everything is imaginary, The imagination is all there is, basically, So I was like, whether you can prove it or not, I'm like, if I imagine myself so strongly to be in contact with a higher power, then it manifests. All I'm proving is that I am a creator in my own right.
100. Like this is the thing that really and more so recently, because I think in 2025 more than any other year, there has been these preconceptions or scientific facts. Well, let's take let's take the 2000s from the millennium. There's been so many things that have been proven wrong that we've taken as fact for so many years.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking with Adrian Rose, who was early episode on the podcast, and he's a mycologist, master medicinal herbalist, a really good guy, awesome, like so knowledgeable. And we were talking about, sort of Stonehenge when that was first discovered. This is the oldest megalithic structure in the world. There's nothing ever older than this, and so on and so on. And then some farmer in Turkey trips over a rock, and there you go, Göbekli Tepe's born, which is like 13,000 years old. And it's like, right, so that's one thing that's debunked. Then it was sort of humans are no more than 200,000 years old, and then they found a 1,000,000-year-old skull in China recently, which is like, wow. It's not just beaten the record by like a few years. It's like, hundreds of thousands of years older.
Yeah.
Then sort of with the chimp DNA, we're 97 or 98% identical to chimp. It actually turns out it's closer to sort of 80%.
Right.
But it's the way that they've picked certain markers and moved statistics to make it. And how many times is this going to happen? Where the human ego, and you'll have a lot more experience in this than I will, but that in terms of that, the egotistical human point of view of like, oh yeah, we know this to be certain. With religion and with spirituality and with the sort of higher power, that for anybody that sort of had psychedelic experiences, nobody can tell me what I experienced wasn't real. Because what I know for a fact, I'm not clever enough to make that shit up. I can't. Yeah. I'm not that imaginative to make that stuff. It's impossible. Yeah. So at some point, it's got to concede that science has been proven wrong again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And this is just going to be, I think, one of the probably the lifelong sort of issues where science is going to sort of say, no, God doesn't exist, or no, there's no such thing as the ether or, spiritual energies, where for those that have experienced it, like you mentioned, if you've experienced it, it is real to you.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there's no amount of science that can prove that it's wrong or doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, I'm going back to obviously where you're at, and forgive me for interrupting, but I've been waiting for this conversation with you for like months now. So I've got like 40 points lined up, ready to rock and roll. Where do you go from that point then? So in terms of you rediscovering your faith, and religion, and is that the sole thing that sort of saved you to the point of turning your life back around and putting you on purpose?
I think that I learned a lot in rehab about myself. I learned like about mindfulness and meditation. I remember meditating in rehab, and initially I'm very resistant to mindfulness. I was like, fuck are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this? This is like, what's mindfulness? And I couldn't sit still for even probably a minute, 2 minutes, like really just fidgety, just, really addicted, to distraction and movement. And I was reading up about meditation. I like to take information from people or, things and look at it and be like, is there some validity in this? Because if 1,000 people tell me meditation works, then are they wrong or am I right? I only can do that through a testing process, like a lived experience. So I thought, what I'm going to do is ignore my own wanting to not do this and listen to the people for a change, and just get over myself a little bit. And then I was just breathing, meditating in my room in rehab, and I went into this space where I had no thought, and I was well, I didn't think at the time. After I was thinking, I didn't think anything there. What time is it? I was looking at the clock, and when I looked around, everything was bright and different. Everything seemed like a different color, and I was like, what? how is this possible? And that gave me evidence to suggest that is empowering for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to AA and I did the step work and, the daily prayer, meditation, reaching out to other people, so like communicating with people, building community, re-establishing connection in your life, getting into a service role. So that's like helping other people, whether it's making them tea or coffee, giving them out literature, so helping them with AA books. It became a process of like becoming more human and back into my basic qualities of what's good for me as a human being is to help other people, help myself, establish a spiritual routine or practice or connection with creation. Reflect, on my day or on my week. Have I wronged anyone today? Is an apology needs to happen? So it made me more stoic in a sense.
Yeah.
But with a strong spiritual leaning. And then over time then, because I was doing a lot of reflection, I had these urges to work with psychedelics, but because of the environment I was in, it conflicted with my intuition. So what I was learning is like, your environment's not always conducive to your purpose in life.
Yeah.
So I was like, am I here to be sober or am I here to follow my own intuition?
It's really the sort of battle. And you mentioned a few things then into like, so with, you mentioned stoicism, but that accountability is, if you look at it objectively from the outside in, accountability is in such short supply across the world in every echelon of whether you think you're working class, middle class, upper class, ruling class, whatever it may be. That one of the biggest problems, and I've mentioned it a few times online, with government, these people that believe they have the right to meddle with people's lives, the accountability or the lack of accountability within that sort of arena is so rife that if people just for a minute took accountability for their actions, I don't think half this annoyance that's countrywide at the minute would be there. If people just, nobody's naive enough to think that we're humans, we don't make mistakes, we are perfect. It's part and parcel. My partner, love her more than life itself, but she makes mistakes and she pisses me off sometimes. Vice versa, I am awful. I can snap, I can be moody, I can be narky, especially when I'm fasting. I'm not the nicest person to be around because I've kind of got to concentrate, especially in that first 24 hours. But I will account for, I've become a lot better of saying, sorry, this is the reason why. It wasn't anything personal, my fault, my issue, nothing to do with you whatsoever. If people started taking accountability for things a lot more, the world would be a hell of a lot of a better place. And I think, what goes along with that as well is gratitude. I always tell my daughter, build an aptitude for gratitude. And it's become part and parcel of my everyday journal. I've got to come up with 3 things I'm grateful for. 3 things. And they can't be the same things. Can't be the same things next day because that's a cop-out. It's got to be 3 different things. And it just makes you remember how privileged we are. One, just for existence. Just to be here, to be able to think and think introspectively. And 2, it just gives you a little bit more appreciation for other people as well. So like, you see it all the time where, you don't know what battle's going on behind the scenes of anybody that you see on the street. It kind of gives you I think it gives you an insight into, that person's being an angry dickhead.
Yeah.
Probably for a reason like maybe he woke up this morning and his missus has had a go at him, or he's going through financial problems and financial troubles, and it's just bubbling up. It kind of gives you that sort of appreciation, I think.
Yeah.
So as you practice it, I'm presuming you're practicing this during sort of your rehab stay, and then, like you said, in terms of your environment not matching what your purpose is, and that's always been a difficult thing. I know when I've moved. So when I mentioned Imogen, my first therapist, she she actually stopped the sessions with me. She's like, I can't take you any further, and I felt like abandoned. But in hindsight, looking back on it now, it was 100% the right decision, because I couldn't grow anymore within that environment. I needed to step out and go elsewhere to grow into the person that I am now. So you're getting this calling for psychedelics, or for mushrooms or psilocybin, or exploring consciousness, psychonauts, Terence McKenna-esque, whatever you want to call it. How long did you sit with that? Because I can imagine it must have been a really hard internal battle, and worrying, because obviously you've come from addiction to something negative and bad and destructive, and now obviously both you and I can look back in hindsight and think, psilocybin is so far removed from the word drug as you could possibly imagine. How long did you fight with yourself? How long did you battle with yourself internally? Because I know that's what you did. Not through the fact that you've told me, just through the fact that I've had that internal battle. I've had that sort of argument daily of I want to do this, but I can't do this. But you can do this, and you need to do it, and it's just how long did you go on for?
That's such a good question and reflection, and you are right, I did battle with it. And at that point I was the chair of a Swansea AA group. Wow. And I had 3 sponsors that I was working with, so 3 mentees, helping them through the AA book. And I was thinking about using magic mushroom. I was like, oh, what sort of inspiration am I in AA? So I was like, right. So, when you enter an experience, you're like, oh, I'm going to be doing this for a long time, or this is going to be, I'm going to be in AA, I'm going to be going to global AA events and doing all these things. And I was 2 years in going, mushrooms, where do they come from? So I initially didn't say anything to anyone in AA, because it's quite a fragile ground to communicate, risk.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I haven't done anything yet, so this is just a thought. So I spoke to Elle, my now wife, and I said, "Oh, this is what I'm feeling. I feel like this is going to be helpful in some way." And just to give context, my dad passed away in the December, and then around 3 months before, I was feeling I should use them. I should use these magic mushrooms. Then my dad passed away, and I was like, "Oh, maybe this is setting me up for a grieving process through mushrooms." And my wife was like, I support you. I think if that's something that feels true for you, then you should explore it. And she said she'd support me. So the mushrooms grow, where I live. So I could either go up the mountain and get them, but I was on this occasion, I was gifted some Liberty caps. Yeah. And went to I went somewhere and took 5 grams of Liberty caps. Bear in mind, I've not took them.
Yeah, this is not promotion of that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, I bet that was fun.
Yeah. And I just cried, man, for 6 hours, probably. Just cried about loads of things. I didn't feel as when I look at the spectrum of heroic, anecdotal reports of trips, it wasn't like that for me. It was like an initiation into what my emotions actually are and how they operate. So I was just sitting there, and I was getting all this feedback of you're an emotional being. This is your grief. This is your joy. This is this. And it's showing me in a linear fashion, right, this is grief, feel this. I was like, wow. And he's like, this is joy. And I was laughing, feeling joy. And then he was like, this is sadness. I was crying. It was educating me on my emotional spectrum.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is. I know that sort. And when you say cry, and sort of sad, it's everything dialed up to 11, to the point where I know I've and this was, so when I was speaking to Erica, the whole, when people say, I've had a bad trip, I don't think one exists. I don't
No.
think there is such a thing as a bad trip. In terms of mushrooms, obviously with things like LSD and stuff, I know there's a bad trip. I've been there, but with mushrooms, I don't think there's such a thing as a bad trip. It's viewed as bad, but I think what it does is it's showing you things, one, that you need to see or that you need to feel, but two, you're not ready for it. And that's the one. I've done 2 courses now of sort of psychedelic therapy in the past, and I've only ever had one what would be classed as a bad trip. And it was hard to recover. It took 2-3 months to recover from that.
Wow.
And it was the weight. It was like a weight of family and social. When people say like breaking generational sort of trauma,
Yep.
it was that sort of sentiment of I was carrying this generational trauma, and as soon as I'd made the decision to get rid of this rock, get rid of this boulder, it's not fucking mine. I don't want this. The outpouring was when I say I was in hysterics, it was pure hysteria. I couldn't breathe. It was panic. It was, and it was just floods of tears. And most people that would have that, for the want of a better phrase, but probably is the right one, a harrowing experience.
Yeah.
That would be classed as a bad trip. But it was exactly what I needed to be shown, is the fact that you need to get this monkey off your back. This is not your problem. You need to get shut of it and move on. And it showed me something that I needed, but not necessarily what I wanted at the time. I was dialed in and thought, oh, last time I went into space and it was amazing, and it was this, that, the other, and then all of a sudden I'm, in floods of tears and whatnot. So I think that sort of dialing up to 11 of emotion is so important. And the way that you sort of went from happiness to joy to sadness to grief. So sorry to interrupt, but it was just that's what I sort of got from that. Where did you go? So obviously that wasn't your full experience. So you're going through these emotions, and then what happens from that point?
I felt I was just receiving a really deep healing from the medicine, and it was like showing me that this is an indigenous medicine. I am indigenous person of the land. He was saying like that a lot of people need me to help them in some way, shape, or form with healing, basically. And it was saying like, you're a mushroom man, basically, for want of a better, for lack of a better word, like, it was like sort of it took me from being like you're a soldier or a veteran, and then it like started to reconstruct me to be like you're now moving into a new phase, and I could soften my grief around leaving the military. So I had all these ideas. I was like, oh, how do I even do this? Like, what do I even do? What even is this path of like, what is a mushroom man, or what is a medicine man, or, what even is this? I had no idea of the ceremonial aspect to like medicines and all the other types of psychedelic theaters that are happening. There's very vast experiences you can go through in it with the psychedelics and tribal ones. That's
a great word to sort of describe the theaters. It's such a great word to describe that.
Yeah.
Like the ritualistic theater of these sort of it was quite funny. I've been speaking about this recently with my missus and my daughter, and my mum, actually. Anybody that'll listen, because I'm kind of a bit of a chatterbox and I don't shut up. Yeah. But the lack of rituals within, or the disappearance of rituals within society. So, there's a big thing at the minute, and hopefully I've got a gentleman called Cliff Grant coming on the podcast in soon that he's an animal activist. He's a vegan, and I really do understand his moral stance. I'm a meat eater. I love steak. I love meat. I love beef. The more game and the more wild, the better, in my opinion. So venison, pheasant, pigeon, stuff like that for me. Rabbit, right up there.
Nice.
But I think the problem is the symbiosis and living with the environment rather than shaping the. I was walking yesterday. There was another journal session in the morning where I go from the woods, which is an amazing. It's really old woodland, and it's almost untouched. So it's kind of just left. If a tree falls, it stays there till it rots. Basically, so it's not managed. And right on the edge of the when you come through this woodland, there's a brand new housing estate, and it's almost like, why do humans feel the need to mold everything into something different rather than live in harmony and in symbiosis with stuff? And I think with the food and sort of my point with Cliff will be is that reverence. You'll have seen it, and especially with the research that we'll get into when you go into the Amazonian medicines. In the Amazon, when a tapir is killed on a hunt, it's almost it is religious to an extent in sort of the use of the description of the word. They are so thankful and grateful, and they pray to the animal, and they every single part of the animal gets used, and everybody comes together as a whole community and a whole tribe or village and sort of gives thanks to this animal for sacrificing its life to be able to sustain these people. And that reverence and ritualistic practice that has completely disappeared from our food chain as people in England and the Western world, I think that's what doesn't sit right with me at all. And I think with the whole thing with medicines, and the medicine is the right word, but drugs, for those that are listening that are understanding of where I'm coming from, is that that ritualistic element of using these substances. That's when they become useful and not dangerous or harmful. And I wouldn't ever tell anybody to go and do mushrooms. Definitely don't go to the top of a hill and take 5 grams of Liberty Cap. Don't do that. One, because you're not in the right setting, and two, that it needs to be prepared properly. You need, and not the sort of medicine itself, but yourself. You need to be prepared mentally to receive what you're going to receive. But yeah, like that. So Mushroom Man, I like that. I wore this t-shirt especially for you today, Alex. So I'm presuming that triggered your sort of deep dive into researching these medicines like Kambo. Is Bufo another one?
Kambo, Bufo, DMT, both DMTs, Bufo and NMDMT, Iboga, Ayahuasca, San Pedro, Washuma. Yeah, I've done most of them. I've done everyone I mentioned. I've done them.
It's DMT's been on my list. It's still on my list, and I think it brings me to a point that I wanted to raise is the thing that doesn't sit right with me with mushrooms. It did and it does, because they grow right outside a field every year, and the thing that doesn't sit right with me with the ayahuasca, and it's become massive business now in terms of you see them all in Ecuador and Colombia and Peru, and there's these retreats where it's $3,000 for 4 days, 4-day retreat, and you go and it's shamans and so on and so forth. And when things become commercialized like that, and because I'm not an indigenous South American Amazonian person, I've read all Graham Hancock's books Fingerprints of the Gods, Magicians of the Gods, and the
Yeah.
most recent one, whose name escapes me. I'll find it later. But talking about sort of his experience with ayahuasca, which is an element, is in essence the DMT element.
Yeah.
Like you've mentioned, that sort of mindfulness and stoicism, and sort of, I look at it and think, who am I to experience this when it wouldn't be in my wheelhouse if it wasn't
Yeah.
for the modern commercialization of
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
But it is very much something that I desire based on what psilocybin has done for me. Talk me through, and this is purely my own psychedelic porn now, is the fact that I want to understand
Yeah.
what was your experience with it.
With ayahuasca?
Yes.
Yeah, so just to give like some validation of what you said about the commercialization of the industry and like the practice of South American ceremonies, I posted recently about this, how originally the shaman would only drink the ayahuasca. The participant of the ceremony would not drink anything, no psychedelic medicine, and the shaman would then receive wisdom from the plant, from the ether, from the energy, from source spirit, then sing certain icaros to the individual for them to receive a healing. That's the original practice of ayahuasca. And then through the same method, Maria Sabina got infiltrated, and her practice got ripped apart in Matazapek, innit? Around there. Is that that's the mushroom in it from?
Yes, I think so. I'll double check that, but yeah, I'm pretty certain.
There's fractures happen. So when middle class, upper class people come over to these areas, they've got a lot of money.
It was Mazatec, yeah.
Yeah, and then they influence the people who are not really, in the economical world. With, if I can drink the ayahuasca, I'll give you this.
Yeah,
and then slowly, the tribes start feeling and thinking, oh, actually, we could do this a different way now. But it's traditionally the opposite of how they practice. And I was thinking, are we actually supposed to be drinking ayahuasca though? This is for deeply initiated shamans to drink, and then that's why it causes people massive crisis as well as deep homeostasis. It causes the opposite for people, where they're like, whoa, what is going on?
Yeah. It's dangerous. It is very, very dangerous that, whenever you're messing or exploring consciousness and messing with the mind, it's got to be done with such care, to the point where, I know when I did my sessions and I went for my session, if I wasn't in the right frame of mind, and if I, you have to be honest with yourself. It's like, I've made a commitment to this, but I'm not. Today's not the day. Today's not the one, because I know that I'm not in that right headspace. The problem is when people have paid, you see it. The thing that you mentioned, when the sort of the commercialization, where companies get involved and start paying large sums of money. You see it with Everest, Mount Everest. It like that. The idea of being, on top of the world, the highest point on the planet, is a romantic idea. But if you actually look at the photos and the pictures and the experience, I bet it's shit. I bet it's awful, to the point where, people pay six figures to go and do this. The Sherpas get paid peanuts in comparison to what these companies are making. And I've always thought I'd much rather be on the mountain next to Everest, looking at Everest, rather than be on Everest looking at everything else. And that, it kind of just, it takes away from that ritualistic, spiritual element of things when stuff starts becoming commercialized. And like you said, that sort of, and I think it only comes with, funnily enough, it's like, paradoxical, that sort of mindfulness only comes with sort of psychedelic experiences of like, should I actually be doing this? Should I actually be in this space? Because if you hadn't had psychedelics, a lot of people won't think that. They won't think that way. So I'm presuming, obviously, you did go through with it. That's what you experienced. What? I'm going backtracking. Let's backtrack because
the original question.
The original question. So
I've
you've taken this 5 gram dose, which then where's that path from there, that point, to what you're doing now, and this sort of role in service and helper role and helping people.
So much in there.
I know.
from the mushroom journey, it led me to DMT, right? DMT, and then it was like vape and DMT, and me and my wife were like holding space for each other, doing that, and like, you know, helping each other through that process, and that then provoked sort of feelings and like encouragement to work with ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And then that happened really organically. We were thinking, how do we access a South American medicine without going to South America, basically? Because, you know, there was 2 kids already on the scene. There's no way that I could leave for a certain amount of time. I didn't feel like I could. I didn't have the money anyway to do that at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it naturally, someone in the community, we just like bumped into them, and they were actually practicing DMT as well.
Wow.
And they were like, oh, I know someone who is in the UK, and they can connect you with someone who's, you know, who can help you out. So that we made some contacts, and then we connected into this like big underbelly of you know, ceremonial psychedelic communities, and met loads of different types of people within the community, and found out there was an ayahuasca ceremony not far from where I actually live now.
Wow.
And I was like, oh wow, this literally, you know, there's an Amazonian ceremony like you know, down the road from me. And you wouldn't know, and you're not meant to know unless you're supposed to know.
Yeah.
So me and Elle decided not to sit together because we're in a relationship. We wanted to experience it, you know, individually. And I think I'd recommend that to other people who sit in ceremony with medicine or drugs or, you know, plants. You are going to have an experience about the other person because they're there. You're going to be thinking about them. They're going to lean you away from your introspection.
Yeah. And
I've experienced 2 types of ceremonies, one on my own, one with my wife, and it's very different because you're like, is my wife okay? Is that you know? It's like it's a big, you know, it's a big work on point, like, because you have to be like, right, it's fine, leave it there, you know, just like focus on yourself. The first time I drank ayahuasca was probably 2021, probably, I think, and I've drunk every year since then, you know, consecutively. Apart from this year, it was very challenging. The first, it was like showing me how I thought I knew what was going to happen. So when I drank it, because I smoked DMT, I thought, oh, it's going to be similar to DMT. So I was thinking, you know, when we create an expectation, we can either be let down by it or surprised by it, or it can just be, you know, the worst thing that we did to create that expectation. So it basically wrestled with me for like all night, basically, trying to get me to drop this idea of I know best or I know what's going to happen. And then in the morning, I was like, felt so tired. I was like, I know that it's trying to get me to let go and surrender.
That's one of the hardest things to do. I mean, even with psilocybin, that sort of surrender element is that I wrestled with that for the first 3 or 4 sessions. Is that sort of, because the way I explain it to people that have never experienced it is, and obviously I can't testament to DMT, but if anybody's been under general anaesthetic and that feeling of the cold anaesthesia coming up your arm, and then you 10, 9, 8, and you're out, and you have kind of no choice of that matter. That just happens because of the anaesthetic. But with psilocybin, you feel that it's not cold, but it's warm, and it's from the base of your spine, and that sort of that rush feeling. But you have the decision. You have the decision to either go or stay.
Yeah.
But if you go, you feel like you're gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
Whereas if you stay, you're okay. And that sort of battle of surrender is a very difficult thing to sort of psychologically overcome.
Yeah.
So that was your first. It was basically just battling.
Yeah, it was a big wrestle. It felt like a wrestle where I was like tossing, turning, just being like, how do I get this to be pleasurable? Like, how do I get this to be a good head on? You know, like, because my background is all about drug use and other things. And even though I work with DMT, you know, with DMT, it's like, for most people, you end up somewhere, or it feels similar. There's a similarity within the DMT space until you work with it too much, and then it doesn't. You don't get what you need from it then, or want from it. It'll tell you to go away. It says no to you, basically. The DMT realm will. So I was expecting, from previous experience, for it to be the same, and this is like not how life is. It's like not how life works, really, is it?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, create an idea of tomorrow. It doesn't make sense to do that. It's not fair to do that. But you drink. Usually, you would drink 2 times in a weekend. So I drank Friday night, Saturday night. On the Saturday night, it felt like I was equipped with education, spiritual education from the first session. So I was like, okay, I understand now that I'm going to let go of thinking anything about this. I'm just going to drink and then I see what happens. And it was a marked difference in my experience, very much where I felt like I became the space, where I was just like looking at the space, and I was like, didn't feel like I was looking through my eyes, but I felt like I was just seeing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? And like people were just floating around the room. Like, the assistants, they were in white, like cotton. They were just moving, but not walking. They were like moving around, and I was just looking in complete awe. And the music, I felt like the music was me, and I was the space, and everyone was just the same as me. We were all just like in this constellation, and it was just happening. There was no like context at all. It was like, oh, this is just happening right now, it's just happening. And it was like a moment of like being like, how do I even integrate or understand this or conceptualize this in my real life, and it's not, sometimes it's not meant to be, and it's just a moment that you experience, innit? But it was like the most beautiful thing I've felt, in my life up until that point.
There's a couple of things. Obviously, you mentioned your father that passed away, and it's from my personal experience, it was my nana that had passed away, and I'd suppressed my grief for over a decade. I'd accepted the fact that she was no longer here, but I'd never really dealt with my grief. I'd always kind of been the one to lean on the strong, Lewis sorts it, don't worry about it, and I just get on with things, and I always have, and I still do. So I never really dealt with it, and it ended up coming out, obviously, as psychedelics always do. They don't let you get away with hiding things. Did it help you massively deal with or work? And I don't like to use the phrase work through grief, because I don't think grief is something to be worked through. I think it's something to be sat in and experienced, and it will be with you for the rest of your life. It's just learning to have a healthy relationship with what's known as grief, rather than this negative connotation that society currently holds with it. How did it help you with that element? Because I'm sure it did.
Yeah, it helped me because I really felt the spiritual nature of life. And then, when I'm relating that to my father now being in spirit, I felt the comfort in there. I was like, oh, actually, we're all part of this same thing. And now my dad's, in the same thing, but not in the same realm as me in a way. So I could take that. It's almost like in your life, you have belief systems. And sometimes recognizing you are spiritual or of spiritual nature, it can shatter them belief systems which are really controlling.
Yes, they're limiting. They're very limiting. Yeah,
they're limiting. Yeah,
they are. They put barriers in sort of every element, and it's the same with sort of science. Is that sort of, you know, relating it to the grief element? That was very silly. Just the understanding that, you know, the death of the human condition isn't the end of the spiritual existence.
No.
Was such a comfort, to the point where it's like it's almost like a oh, I can relax then. Oh, I don't need to stress that much. I don't need to get wound up. I don't need to worry about my time is running out. I don't need to get frightened of death, because death is the end. And, you know, the typical atheistic belief of, you know, when you're dead, and that's it. There's no existence. That sort of weight and pressure off was the trigger of, like, the acceptance of grief for me, as well as sort of being on the other side of the grey veil and seeing the grey veil firsthand. That was amazing for me. So in terms of sort of dealing with your grief and understanding that spiritual element, I'm presuming when you did sort of the ayahuasca and the DMT, because of obviously your previous history with addiction to something that was destructive, did this sort of, how different did it feel? Did it feel different to that element of, obviously when it was crack, it was obviously dependent. You were dependent on this substance, and it kind of ruled you. What was the difference? How could you tell that was different?
So the precursor to the ceremony is you know, you are connected to the facilitators who run it. So they're asking you, like, why do you want to do this? Are you bringing trauma to the space? Are you trying to fix yourself in some way? You know, what work have you done already on yourself? There's like a level of accountability before you step into these spaces where, you know, I'm not just running into the space as a crack addict trying to, like, drink ayahuasca and get some healing. It was like I'd already been through a rehab process, spent like time with mushrooms and DMT, and now I've like organically reached this point now where I felt like the life was saying, "Oh, it's okay for you to do this if you want. If you don't want to, it's fine. If you do want to, it's going to be okay for you." And the setting is very, you know, it's a really strong container you're in. So you've got staff. Everyone's like positioned in a way where you feel supported by other people and the staff. It's in a space which feels sacred. It's a very natural space. I was in like a big wooden, like, barn almost, you know, which felt really ceremonial. And everything about the ceremony was said with with a lot of devotion and sacredness and respect. So it like changed, you know, from using a drug to like celebrating or being devotional to a practice which is like lived in the Amazon, and also a medicine which is seen as sacred or seen as part of someone's like religious practice, you know, in if you want to use that word, religion just means to be devoted to something. You know.
Yeah. So it's not. The descriptive use of the word religion.
And so when I was with the medicine, I was like, oh, this feels like there's something about this which is going to support me and help me in some way, rather than me using this to get somewhere, like get a high or escape. I felt like this is me. I felt scared to do it, and I felt nervous, but it felt like we were all on the same journey in one sense. We all wanted to experience ayahuasca and how that would feel for us and how that would support us in our lives and what we would learn from it. And I never went into a crack pipe thinking, what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn today?
It's funny, and you're right in saying, and this is the thing for me, is the fact that the sort of demonization of drugs is in my opinion correct. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm still of the belief that if a consenting adult wants to smoke crack, be my guest. It's not for me to control as a government or whatever. It's not for me to control. Unfortunately, they do, and it's part and parcel of Ronald Reagan and Ronald Reagan's initial war on drugs. But for anybody that's been in and around psychedelics, and like I said, I've never gone down the DMT route, but I have done the 2 courses of psychedelic therapy, and it is the most non-addictive substance that you could possibly imagine, to the point where now, if it got to the last sort of few sessions of the second set of these therapy courses, and I had to fool my own body into consuming the mushrooms because it didn't want it. So I've now ruined dark chocolate for me, so I can't eat dark chocolate anymore. Thank you. Herbal hibiscus tea, can't smell it, touch it, taste it. It makes me sick. And the only thing that was left was lemon juice, because that was quite old, and it is a common way, but you don't want to run back to it anytime soon. And I think that's the good thing with it, is the fact that it kind of shows you that, I'm not here to rule your life. I'm here to help. I'm here to expand your consciousness. And I think the sort of exploration within consciousness is something that I still maintain the opinion personally that every single person on this planet would benefit from one mushroom trip. I do believe that, because of what it can show you as a person, and what it helps you understand as a person. Graham Hancock holds the belief that every world leader should at least do one heroic dose of mushrooms, and I truly believe that is probably the right thing to do. But to see Keir Starmer on mushrooms probably would be a fun thing to behold. So you've gone through the ayahuasca and the general route. What made you not stop at that point? Because from everybody that I know that has experienced either psilocybin, DMT, or both, that's generally the end. But DMT is sort of the Shangri-La. That's where the experience stops. What pushed you further to go into stuff like Kambo? Because before coming across you, I'd never heard of Kambo at all. Didn't know it was a thing. What pushed you? What kind of gave you them? Was it from the experiences, the psychedelic experiences that you had, that pushed you to find or explore a little bit more in terms of these medicines?
Within the ceremonial communities and within the ceremonies themselves, you meet very interesting people, and people with different types of experiences. So they offer different medicines, they offer different, ceremonies, and within that scope and within them weekends I was spending doing this work, I was meeting like people who would serve Kambo and people who were like trained in different medicines and work with different tribes, and I was like, oh, this is like really fascinating. It's like these people do this regularly and support other people, and I thought, I feel like I could do this. I feel like I could, like as a soldier, I feel like you're naturally a space holder in a way. Like you basically have to hold yourself. You have to be with other men and be on operations, and you have to get your shit together in some, all the time, and I thought ceremonies are about helping people get their shit together in a lot of ways. People are like going into deep processes, and a lot of people are there to just be there for that person rather than like reassure them or like comfort them. It's just about being there as a presence and having that energy for the other person just to lean into. And I felt like, from the mushroom trip, I felt like, this is another connection to me. Like, I'm somewhere in this path. There's room for me in here. And Kambo is like the most appealing one to train with because it's legal in the UK. And the guy who trained me, Greg Mann, he was familiar to me through like the people talking about him, and I was made aware of him through the ceremonial work, and I reached out to Greg and just asked him if I could train with him in Kambo, And then I was like doing more ceremonial training then. So I went on a 2-week training course and learned about how to create ceremonies, how to deliver Kambo safely, how to work with people, how to triage, assess different people like who want to come for healing.
So for those that obviously are listening and don't understand what we're talking about,
Yeah.
I'm astutely aware of the fact that throwing around the word Kambo to a lot of my listeners, they won't have a fucking clue what that means.
Yeah.
What is Kambo?
Yeah. Kambo is a secretion of peptides which is taken from a frog called the Philomedusa bicolor. Peptides are really becoming popular now, like, you know, in this current time.
Ozempic's peptides, isn't it?
Yeah. So
other weight loss injections are available.
Yeah, so Kambo is it's 100 different peptides, 100 plus different peptides, which are used on the skin of the human body, and it interacts with the human body in such a specific way, creates a level of homeostasis within the nervous system, within the different systems that the body has, and that in turn creates a healing effect. So the peptides have many different functions within within the medicine, and some are researched, some are not. There's I think there's like 25 to 30 patents that have been created from Kambo medicine already.
Wow.
So you can tell that it's very interesting for the medical industry and for other types of industries to try and take this and sell it in a different way, but they will discourage you from trying to use Kambo in its original form. It's like it's like I see this in lots of different ways. Don't use mushrooms off the mountain, but come and do this ceremony with 2 professional therapists and pay us $5,000.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the same.
It's the bastardization of something that's sacred quite a lot of the time. And I saw there was a post, I mentioned it to Adrian actually, there's a post relatively recently, a few months ago, that I saw where it was talking about the psilocybin industry is going to be worth over 700 billion and so, and it's like, well, anybody that's used the fucking stuff would understand that that's not what it's about. It's not about the financial aspect of it. So from a layman's point of view, and like I said, I've never come across Kambo up until I came across yourself. It from what I've read, it's like a great purge. And it's a purge of your system in essence. So there's explain what the great what could I, so if you were taking me on a Kambo experience and so I ingest this Kambo, it comes on your skin, doesn't it? From that point, what can I expect?
So I'd say Kambo is it's a layered process. So it's not just like we had to have one ceremony or one application of Kambo. It can be, for some people, it can be like that. But for a lot of people, it's multiple layers. It's like what we're doing is de-armoring. Kambo is a de-armoring process of all our things we put in place to get away from the energy that we're trying to protect. You know, the sadness or grief or anger or shame. And then that's what is creating the disease and sickness within us, that emotional charge that we've held on to, that we can't look at because it's too much hurt, too much fear in there. What it would look like is we would have a consultation, understand like what you're bringing into the space. Maybe you just want to have an experience.
I mean, from my perspective, it's purely from an interest, intuitive. I'm intrigued. I'm a massive believer that, I mean, you look at all modern medicines. All modern medicine is derived from something natural. So every opiate that's in the medicine cabinets of every medical professional across the world comes from a poppy. That's where it all derives from. That's where opium exists. You know, even fentanyl wouldn't exist without the poppy because they wouldn't know how to make something synthetic without seeing it done naturally in the first place. And penicillin, it's a mold, isn't it? Yeah. So like understanding that is the case, I'm intrigued in terms of these natural medicines, whether it be ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin, Kambo. What was the other one? Bufo was the other one, wasn't it? I'd come into it purely from an intrigue perspective as to what can this do for me. I've seen what other medicines have done for me. What can this do for me?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just to play the role. That's what I'd come into it with.
Yeah. Like Kambo's it's a root cause medicine. So like we're getting to the root of something, not treating symptoms. Like allopathic medicine is about symptom treating. Like natural medicine is like you're an emotional being. You're working with energy. Kambo's going to work with your energy systems, help you rebalance it, help you achieve some level of homeostasis within a certain time frame. That might be 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, depending, how resistant you are basically to the process of letting go. And like Kambo is another letting go process because, for one, Kambo is applied through the epidural layer of the skin, so you need to get a small stick or a small incense stick and burn the top layer of the skin.
Right. Okay.
Like really gently, like this. Okay, so you go.
Right. Okay.
Like that. So but just that coming into a space where someone's going to burn you. That's a big process for someone, Okay, so like that in itself is like I'm letting go now of everything I know about medicine, about healing, about like helping. Because if you're burning someone, you think, oh, that's not helping me. So it's like it's a deconditioning process when you come into these spaces and these ceremonies, because it's so out of contrast from our normal life. And the tribes, they live in, like, we only believe what we believe is because it's been given to us by people we know, our parents and our society. If we both now were born in South America, in a tribe, we would think allopathic medicine is insane, basically. We'd be like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, why don't you just go and sing to the river or go and drink river water? Or,
it's really strange, and this is the sort of, synergy with the universe is the conversation that technically I had with myself this morning. You're kind of hitting on all the points that I kind of raised myself in terms of, my experience with religion and God, or what other people call Allah, or what other people call Krishna, or what other people call Buddha, or Tao in China, whatever it may be. And I know Ricky Gervais uses this argument in terms of, from his atheistic standpoint, is in terms of the fact that, aren't you so lucky to be born into the right religion? You're so lucky that you were born in the UK and you just happen to believe in Christianity. If you were a Christian in the middle of Pakistan, you'd struggle. And it's that sort of, your environment of where you are kind of dictates what is the norm and what is sort of accepted for you. And that sort of element of, like you're saying, if you're in South America, using these practices, these ancient Amazonian medicines would be normal. It's not something out of the ordinary. Whereas taking a flu shot every year, or a nasal spray every year, they'd be like, what the fuck are you spraying up my nose? Like, I'm okay. I don't need that. That's weird, strange. And but me having that conversation with myself this morning, and then you mentioning that, it's just, that's the universe sort of speaking to me that we're on the right track. We're onto something here, Alex.
Yeah.
So going from that little burn point of however many you do, what sort of, because it's not a psychedelic medicine, is it?
No.
So with peptides, obviously, that to me screams stomach, digestion, that sort of element.
Lymphatic system, nervous system, all your internal systems that we have. There's multiple of them in it. I would then apply medicine. There's the Kambo peptide medicine to your skin, and you would then go through a number of reactions to that, a number of responses to the medicine. Some of are Lower your blood pressure, lowers your heart rate, increases slightly. You can have tingling in the body. You feel red. You feel hot, flushed. Your body's essentially triggering a healing mechanism from all the peptides it's receiving through the skin and through the lymphatic system, and then throughout the body. You feel it, like you said about it's funny actually. You mentioned the anaesthetic going up your body. You feel the same. You feel the same process with Kambo. So you feel it going around your body, it's almost like it's like a mycelium web around the body. You feel that connection. You can purge, and it's very common for people to purge, but not always. Purging, if someone, especially in this society, you see that sickness or being sick is people are ashamed of it, or people are trying to hold back from doing that in front of people. So just being sick in front of someone else can be a really strong, big process for someone. So you see people are holding back the sickness because they think sickness is bad or it's something that shouldn't happen. So we're trained in this society, innit? Oh, you're sick. Yeah. He's sick. There's something wrong with him. But actually, like, if my body is raising its temperature or doing things, changing to have a fever, my body's responding perfectly to its environment.
It's in tune,
It's actually doing what it's supposed to do. So it's not sick. I'm not bad. I'm actually, I'm responding in a perfect way. It's a good way, isn't it? So we're trained to think that sickness is bad or sickness is wrong. So you intuitively try and fight against that from happening.
Yeah, it's that, if you weren't, the whole point of being sick is your body's response to something it doesn't want in it. Yeah. And if it didn't do that, then a lot of people would probably die. So it's your body being healthy. It's doing exactly what it's meant to be doing.
Yeah.
So from in terms of this experience, although it's not psychedelic, a lot of it I can imagine would be in the mind and intrinsically beneficial in terms of the fact of the process that you go through, whether that be physiologically, therefore, for instance, you're going through fasting now. That a lot of that would people would think, well, that's just feeling hungry. No, there's a lot. I'd say probably 75% of it is in the mind. The constant. You'll understand what I mean when that hunger comes in that wave. It's being strong enough to go, nope, I'm making the conscious decision. I'm not going to eat. And then 20 minutes, half an hour later, that wave's disappeared and you feel absolutely fine again.
Yeah.
That wasn't anything necessarily physiological because you weren't going to die if you didn't eat. It was all psychological. Is that a similar experience with Kambo? Is it's physiological responses but psychological healing, if that makes sense?
You're right in saying that. So it's very physical. You're in your body, you're feeling things, you're like plugged in to your somatic realm, and you are thinking. Then you could be thinking, I'm not comfortable with this, I want this to stop. And then what you're then experiencing is the resistance to the process. And what I see this with a lot of parents, actually. In the park, you see kids with their parents, and actually the parents got such a strong agenda for the child, like how it's supposed to be. Okay, it's like, don't do that, don't do this. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. It's like, oh, who's are you there for you or for the child? What's actually going on here? It's like, actually, we're so used to in society of like being controlled by someone else, especially as a child. It's like, the parents are saying now, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So when you're going through a natural process, you're trying to fight it because you're like not used to someone else just saying to you, let go, just let it go. Whatever's going to happen now is fine. It's okay. We're going to go to the park. You can run around wherever you want. You can run all over the place, chuck mud over yourself, jump in the river, whatever, cool, do it. Like, it's fine. We're learning then to argue with our current reality because someone else is arguing with our experience. It
is a difficult thing to I can almost liken it to I can imagine likening it to coming from the military back into civilian life. So for a squaddie reintegrating into to being a civilian. When you've had that psychedelic expansion and experience and consciousness has sort of been expanded beyond whatever you thought was possible, trying to reintegrate into society where I know I struggled, where people, it's that sort of, I didn't have much of a propensity for small talk in the initial instance before I did my sort of psychedelic journey, and then I came back in and people start talking about, oh well, Sandra said this at work, and I'm like, I fucking checked out. This is not for me. I can't deal with this. Like, let's talk about something important, And I'm when I was speaking about or brainstorming the idea for the name for the podcast, and I think I settled on the right one in terms of cut the shit, because I don't like just chatting shit. I need something of substance. And one of the biggest things, the biggest phrases that I take umbrage to is like when you go to a party and people say, "Don't talk politics or religion." Like, yeah, they're the interesting things. They're the things that you kind of find out how people think and who people are. You don't have to agree, but you kind of find out who's who and where they believe and why they behave the way that they do behave, and so on and so forth. And I think that integration, understanding, breaking them societal norms or boundaries or whatever you kind of grown up to become, stripping that away and learning to be who you truthfully are. Everything that, for instance, everything that you experienced from being a child all the way up to exiting the army led you to the point of that, being an addict and being in that space. To unlearn that, and this is, I know Paul Stamets is doing a lot of work in the States regarding addicts, and ibogaine as well, which has just been legalized in Texas. In terms of the fact that that's a behavior that's been learned consciously or unconsciously over so many years, to the point where you have to break that back down to nothing. You have to start again, and that's where, in my opinion, medicines like psilocybin, probably Kambo, definitely DMT, they come into this space of like, right, let's unlearn all this shit that's not good for you, and let's rebuild what you are supposed to be, what your actual purpose is. So how long does Kambo sort of take then? So obviously this is what you practice in. How is it an unspecified sort of treatment in terms of length or days or weeks, or is it just until you kind of feel I've got what I can out of this. This has taught me what it needs to teach me. It's similar to the psychedelic element. Is that what happens?
The duration of Kambo, from when you administer the medicine, and it can vary in length. From some people it's like 15-20 minutes, some people are maybe like on the 45-minute scale, but like that doesn't mean you're suffering for that length of time, or struggling. It's it's a process of leaning into your own awareness and leaning into your emotions that may come up or may not. And another part of the ceremony is wrestling. Some people wrestle with it, some people allow it, but some people really wrestle with that sickness, and they're like, no. But even the rocking and all the movements, there's some resistance to the process, basically. Rather than just being with it and being with the sickness, it can prolong the duration of the medicine. It's almost trying to teach you to just trust in the process of Kambo. In the jungle, they call it the jungle vaccine, and also they call it the discipliner.
Right.
Kambo, the discipliner, because it's like teaching you, basically, like it's all good, you're fine. Just let me do the work for you. Let me help you.
It's
getting in the way.
You mentioned like discipline, and I had one of your countrymen, actually, Carl Jones. He's a ultramarathoner. Funnily enough, he's a stroke survivor and traumatic brain injury survivor.
Wow.
Unbelievable story. I mean, this guy. So Carl, he suffered a traumatic brain injury, which was through boxing. It was like a long concussion, and he was losing the ability to speak and walk. and the doctors couldn't tell him whether it would end or when it would end. They couldn't give him a definition. So unfortunately, and luckily he didn't succeed, but he tried to take his own life. And then discovered running, did the Cardiff marathon, and 2 days after... then he did his first ultra marathon, which was 40 odd miles. 2 days after that, he had a stroke.
Wow.
And next year he's doing the Welsh Coastal Path, 800 odd miles he's going for the fastest known time, which is like 2 weeks, I think he's doing it in. But really interesting guy. But he spoke about sort of Dave Goggins being an inspiration for him. And when you mentioned that discipline, I think what people do is people look at people like Dave Goggins and think, I can't achieve that. I'm not going to be that person. I take it from somebody who hasn't got cartilage in their knees, and he hasn't. There is no fucking way I'm running on a road for longer than a mile. There's not a chance. I went to hockey training the other week, and they went for a warm up run on the road. It's the main road is only, I'd say it's less than it's probably a mile there and back. I got 2 minutes here. Fuck this. I've come for hockey. I'm not running on a road. I'll do joggings and doggy sprints, but I ain't doing this. So I think that sort of level of discipline seems unachievable. It seems almost caricaturized.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're mentioning in terms of the little wins, the little sort of decisions, like that you mentioned, the element of surrender to allowing your body to do what it's made to do, which is, like you say, if you feel sick, be sick. That's what your body's performing in its right way. Yeah. Being disciplined in that tiny decision does have extra ramifications then when it goes on to bigger things. Then that little bit of discipline that you showed will then multiply into a little bit bigger of a discipline, then a little bit bigger. And we start making, for anybody that, say, wants to lose weight, I know over the past 6 months I've lost 2 stone because I was ill-disciplined, and it's so easy to pick up a packet of crisps and a chocolate bar and just, I'm a little bit peckish, I'll have that. And then that discipline comes in terms of the fact that, no, I am a bit peckish, but I can stop. Like you said, with the fasting, like you're doing now. So I can understand from my perspective how Kambo helps with things that you wouldn't necessarily relate to that experience is discipline. Yeah. Or discipline in decision. What other benefits would you say? If you could give as a Kambo practitioner, Alex, what would be your top 3 benefits of sort of doing Kambo?
Yeah, I was thinking, as you were speaking, I was thinking, all this is someone trying to, solve some sort of problem in their life, innit? And this is packaged in some way. So like and the packaging is like, how familiar are we with the process? So if I was selling peptide injections, right, and people could come to my treatment room, receive these peptide injections, and, they would still possibly be sick. Yeah. But, there's a healing process. Maybe it would be much more attractive for some people, but because of the way it's packaged and delivered through the frog, it can be, someone may have to work through the idea of doing it because it's so unfamiliar. But ultimately, if you want, there's certain problems that Kambo can help you solve. It can help you deal with emotions, repressed emotions, suppressed emotions. It can help you deal with certain charges that you've had in your life or received in your life from people or life itself, certain traumas, certain life experiences. It can help you like uncondition yourself in some way, shape or form from what you've received from other people. So for example, the sickness one, when people think of Kambo and they hear about the sickness, they think, I'm not going to do that because it creates a sickness for me. But, in other parts of the world, there's not such a resistance to purging. Yeah, yeah. They see it as, it's just natural process in the body. People immediately discount Kambo because it's from the tribes in the Amazon and it's not scientifically tested. It's not X, Y, and Z to do with you know, it's actually from a live frog, you know?
Yeah.
And people are like thinking, oh, how is that going to affect me in my body? Is it going to harm me?
Yeah, I think that sort of exotic nature of it. I think that's because, you know, as humans, deep down, and probably subconsciously, it's like the fear of the unknown, the fear of the different. And I must admit, if that was the sort of barrier to me in terms of, you know, the internal battle like we've all had of, I'm out of control. This is, you know, if I go into this therapy session, it's no longer me. I'm not in control of this. I can't. And once it starts, you can't switch the off button. That's it. It's on. So it's that commitment of decision. And I think when you patch it, and this is the problem, is, you know, we spoke about this, and you know, your journey and your experience kind of highlights the two polarizing worlds within sort of these substances that are mind altering, that are sort of, and I do kind of want to get on this, and we probably will do, but that sort of the legal element of mind altering substances like opiates, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, all these things are mind altering. But you know, you can go down the local Tesco's, other supermarkets are available. You go down there and get whatever you want of these substances willy-nilly if you've got the money. Whereas substances like crack, cocaine, heroin, these are all destructive substances that basically they use you, not you use them. And then you have this other element of substances, which will be things like Kambo, mushrooms, DMT, that MDMA is in there now as well, in terms of these are things that people can use to heal rather than that substance use them. It's a really difficult thing for me to reconcile. Where do you think that do you think it comes from, like the threat to business and power, in terms of, especially from the medical side of things? Like we've already alluded to the fact that people putting valuations on psilocybin industries. It's like, it's not about that. Do you think it's an amalgamation of Western society as it's grown up, or as it's sort of developed? It's all about money. It's capitalist. It's all about control. And more so for us living where we live in the UK, is it's becoming more and more apparent to me that element of control, they're sort of clambering for more and more of it. And these sorts of medicines kind of make you understand that they have absolutely no control over you whatsoever. Do you think it's that, or do you think it's something a little bit more sinister?
Yeah. I think I was speaking to someone recently about like the topic of allopathic medicine. So our allopathic system is very infant. It's like, you know, from maybe 1800s, 1900s, like, you know, how it's developed. When you look at the Chinese system, it's thousands of years old. It's got a lot of, you know, it's got a very deep evidence-based system, and it's very natural and herbal-based, you know?
Yeah.
So what we're experiencing is a bureaucratic system which is training people to really believe in it as a system, as opposed to the Chinese system, which is very long term and very successful, and they only suggest that you do this. Oh, I don't suggest you do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do this. Do this. Do this. So, like in your life, from birth through school, healthcare, what you're hearing is don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this.
It's always the don't.
Yeah. Even in pregnancy, man, like when women and
you can't eat this. You
don't
can't
do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Risk. So there's like, if anyone's listening to this now and they think, oh, that's too unsafe for me, there's a risk in there. Like, I totally like hear you, because you're trained to risk assess everything to do with their health.
Yeah.
Anyone who's coming into ceremonies is because of something health related, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health. It's something of that nature, predominantly. And even if you want a spiritual experience or just an experience itself, it's coming into your body, so you have to acknowledge the health aspect of it.
Yeah.
In some way. You have to acknowledge, okay, if I drink this, I could have a reaction to it. If I drink this, it could affect me in some way in my body, and it's like that process.
Yeah, it's. I think like you said, sort of that knowledge and that sort of digging for knowledge of these, the Amazonian tribes have used this for centuries. Nobody knows how long they've been using them for. Nobody really knows how long that these have been sort of developed over time and over generations. And I think that sort of knowledge element of not understand, like I say, for somebody that's sort of been in the space for, how long has it been now? 4 years ish, 4 or 5 years. I didn't even know what Kambo was. It wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then somebody that's not in the space and not, flirted with psychedelics or been in and around traditional ancient medicines, it that sort of, like you said, that blanket of, oh, that's different, that's strange, not for me. Whereas Kambo isn't going to make you see the walls breathe, and it's not going to make you see faces and geometric shapes. It's going to help you in a completely different manner. And, these injections, weight loss injections that have taken over the world over the recent years, that the same thing that's in that is what's in this, in essence, in terms of these peptides. I mean, obviously there's hundreds of them, but that's the same chemical makeup. That's trusted, because of the way it's packaged.
Yeah.
Completely.
It's so interesting. Like, I'll just give you a couple of reports of ceremonies that I've conducted and the results from them. So, about 4 days ago, a woman who I worked with 2 years ago has just been discharged from psychiatric care, and her diagnosis of bipolar is finished.
Oh, well, wow.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? So you came in to see me, and a lot of people come to see me or come into Kambo as like this little itch. They have a little itch of like, oh, the Kambo. Feels like I should be doing this. It feels like for some reason that I'm drawn to it.
Yeah.
It's like there's a magnetism in life, and like you're magnetized to all certain things. Like certain people, if you go on holiday to a certain country, there's a reason for that. You're magnetized towards that. It's the same, I say, with different experiences which you might not be familiar with. So that might be Kambo. You might feel like, oh, I feel drawn to that.
Yeah.
And then you try and overpower that feeling with thoughts of like, oh, I shouldn't do this. It's not safe and all this thing. But that magnetism is actually something that's very natural and rich for us as humans. It's like a innate intelligence.
That intuition, like you said, the gut feeling, the intuition. Everybody has it. Every single person has it. And the way I explain it to friends and people that sort of are a bit skeptical about it is the fact that every single person will have walked into a new job, new school, a pub, a bar, a restaurant, whatever it may be, and there will be a man or a woman or whatever sat in the corner, and you'll be like, I don't like them. Something's shady, something's off.
Yeah.
And you will have never met the person before. You won't know their name. This will be the first time you've seen them and the first time they've seen you, but you have an intrinsic feeling that they aren't your people. They aren't for you. And then on the reverse side of that, you'll have met somebody for the first time and you click. And I like them. They are my sort of person. And you know nothing about this person, but you just have that intrinsic feeling of this person is the right person for you to be around. That feeling, that is true intuition. And if you can apply that to wider aspects, wider things like Kambo, like medicines, psilocybin, DMT, whatever it may be, that intuition, if you listen to it, will never lead you wrong.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely will it ever lead you wrong.
No.
And even if you think it's a negative experience and you think you shouldn't have trusted your gut, it's an experience that you should have had, because it's going to
Yeah.
lead you down the line to something that is going to benefit you.
Yeah.
But yeah, massive believer on that. So sorry, carry on your story.
Yeah. I feel like on the top of intuition, I feel like Kambo enhances people's intuition. So,
Right.
for example, a lot of feedback I get from people is about boundaries. So when they do Kambo, their boundaries increase. Like they are able to implement boundaries because they feel a sense of power, and they're able to recognize where where they're lacking boundaries. So one example is another client of mine put really strong boundaries in with her parents after the ceremony. Like a number of weeks after, she was recognizing things that were happening in her environment with relationships, and able to notice that needed to change. And these
Right.
are like long-term, relationships, long-term dynamics, which a lot of people experience the same dynamic for a long time. And
Yeah.
actually, it's a dynamic that doesn't serve you as a person. It serves the other person or the
Yes.
parent,
Yes.
or, there's someone else in it. So and what Kambo, I've seen this happen quite regular. Kambo will discipline you to recognize that that's not serving you anymore, and then you can change that however you feel is best for you. So, for example, she put boundaries in about, like, I'm not doing this or this or this, like, I'm overextending myself. So what I'm going
Yes.
to do now is look inwards and think, is this right for me? Yes or no? No, it's not. Okay, I'm going to change that. And in doing that, she attracted a relationship into her life which was safe,
Yes.
because she's looking out for herself, and so she's like, oh, I'm now in a relationship now, and I haven't been for a long time because I felt, fearful of that.
It's really, and this is the thing. I spoke about this. So I had my life coach for 5 years, Kathleen. She was on the second episode of the podcast, and it was a very vulnerable place for me to sit in, because that woman knows all my deepest, darkest secrets. Everything that's sort of gone on in my life over the past 5-6 years, she has been privy to. And I wouldn't be sat where I am without her. So, hi, Kathleen, if you're listening. But we were speaking about sort of the manifestation. And I've thought recently about, you get people that sort of go on about manifestation, and I think Rhonda Byrne, The Secret. I've read the book, great book, and gets the principles really, really well, but doesn't still, for me, quite explain the whole thing behind manifestation. Is
Yeah.
people think manifestation is sitting there and thinking, if you want to manifest a relationship, let's take the relationship like you just mentioned. You want to manifest a relationship that's perfect for you, and you identify exactly what this other person's traits should be, and so on and so on and so forth. And then you think about that, and you meditate on that, and you concentrate on that. Anybody that believes that that's manifestation and that thing is then going to enter into your life because you're giving it energy is absolutely deluded, and doesn't quite understand that that is not the way that this stuff works. Like you've just alluded to, the Kambo was an intrinsic experience. It was something only experienced by her, and it's experienced differently by other people. So the way she experienced it won't be the same as the way I would experience it.
Yeah.
That triggered a change in her to implement these boundaries that helped her become the sort of person that would then initially attract the person that she wants to. So that is manifestation in itself. Is you've got to change inwards and yourself to fit that external attraction. And I think that's what gets missed a lot within this world and spiritual world. And there is a lot of charlatans and predators that will say, make a lot of money from selling books from privileged positions. They're not bothered when they're sat in their mansion and laughing in their Ferrari when writing a new best-selling self-help book to tell all the peasant commoners on how to manifest the life that you've got. I've never really heard it explained in, like you said, in terms of the symbiosis, in terms of you've explained what your client did, and then relating that to Kathleen, who explains manifestation so well to the point where, yeah, there's got to be something in that. If there's some synchronicity, which there clearly is, it's understanding that work on yourself will then in turn create the life externally that you want to experience and you want to have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think, what's the future? What's the future of, like you mentioned, there's a lot of research going on into peptides and specifically the Kambo peptides.
Yeah.
What do you think the future is of these sort of sacred medicines? Because my fear is the commercialization, as it always is. What do you see in the future? Do you see it becoming more popular, more mainstream, or would it ruin it if it did?
I think as it grows in popularity, it's definitely going to become more mainstream. But actually what I'm seeing is a lot of people who are already practicing the medicine work and ceremony work, they are starting to look now down to the street level individuals and recognise people on the streets, people who are really, unable to access the work because they can't afford it. It's sort of a lot. It's really middle class. This sort of area.
Yeah.
So people are wearing all these white gowns and walking around and doing these things. It's very middle class environment. But a lot of people now who've done the psychedelic work are seeing that they need to look downstream. You need to look right to the bottom of the of the class structure and start to help people with basic holistic practices like reflection, stoicism, journaling, breath work, not like intense breath work, but like getting them to start drawing into themselves and start to grow from within and start to put boundaries in, start to address the stuff that's going on for them, start to become more emotionally aware. So I think there's going to be a twofold thing going on. There'll be people who just love the psychedelic stuff, but then there'll be people who have done the psychedelic stuff and think, I've had enough of that now. I'm going to use what I know and empower the people in a different class structure or different type of economical situation to me, poorer background, different demographics, and then empower them to start growing more and evolving, into powerful beings as they are in their own right, So I think there's a twofold process. Like I think it's not going to go away for sure.
No, and I think it's only going to grow. It's just got to. Yeah. In my opinion, it's got to grow in the correct manner and in the correct with the correct people that help it to grow naturally. It's quite interesting you mentioned journaling there. It's something that I've tried to do so much over the past 4 or 5 years in this sort of 8-9 year therapeutic journey, and I've always struggled. I've managed to do it for like a month, and then you miss one night, and then you miss another, and then you miss another, and then it's 2 months, and you think, what's the fucking point in going back to it? But what has helped, and this is for anybody out there, AI, ChatGPT has helped me massively to the point where I don't have to sit down and write. I don't have to sit down and type. I don't have to. I go out on my walk in the morning with the dog, and I just speak. And I had a little bit of a sort of thought over this past week in terms of, and you'll know this with the work, the internal work, is one of the biggest things to success. And I don't mean financial success when I say this. Success within life, whether that be happiness, comfort, family, friends, relationships, children, whatever it may be, is that internal dialogue with yourself. How you speak to yourself, how you speak about yourself, how you view yourself outwards towards other people. Jay Shetty mentioned his really good quote. It's a really confusing quote. It took me a while to unpack it, but it was like, I am not who I think I am, and I'm not who you think that I am. I am who I think you think that I am. Which is really profound. But this, over the past, it's been 65 days unbroken journaling now. And I follow a similar structure and then have like a free brain dump at the end for whatever else. And just being able to speak and put it out there and bounce thoughts, in essence, off myself with the help of AI um, it's helped me cultivate, even though I didn't think I had a particularly bad internal dialogue with myself, it was quite a lot of the time negative in terms of victim mindset.
Yeah.
What it's helped cultivate is a really good, healthy internal dialogue of the way I am, the way I view myself, the way I speak about myself,
Yeah.
and which is quite poignant in terms of the fact of this day and age that if you're going to use AI, because you can't put the genie back in the fucking bottle, people need to understand this,
Yeah.
is understanding that this is, in my opinion and my experience, this is a healthy way to use it.
Yeah.
That journaling element becomes so important, because I'm pretty certain when you were in the throes of addiction, that self-deprecating talk puts you further down the rabbit hole of which you don't want to go,
Yeah.
because like you said, when your missus came round and you could only think about, I want you to leave because I want to go up and smoke crack, is the whole. And then you'd feel shit when she left. You'd feel shit about that, which would be like, all right, well, I'm going to smoke crack to forget how shit I feel about
Yeah.
feeling that way. And then it's that sort of dog eating its own arse constantly. Um, and I think that's so important. And if medicines like this help people with that,
Yeah.
and help people understand that you don't have to be a figure like Andrew Tate with a Bulgari and sitting around and fucking making your son do squats at a click of a finger like a fucking military drill
Yeah.
sergeant. You don't have to be that sort of person to be successful. You don't have to have, become the world's first trillionaire and own Tesla and send rockets up into space to be classed as valuable and a productive member of society. That you can just be you, and you
Yeah.
can just have the effect on, if you've got children, if you've got one child, to have an effect on one person's life, that child's life, that is also much more successful than having $1 trillion in the bank.
Yeah.
Far more. So I hope and pray that this sort of evolution of psychedelic medicine and natural medicines and Amazonian medicines and this ancient knowledge that is, who knows how old it is,
Yeah.
only grows. It gets more widespread and becomes more mainstream and keeps its sacred roots as well at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So that sort of brings me to the end and the end. Do you think one of the biggest? Do you think there's something like we mentioned about that intrinsic feeling? Do you think there's something calling people back to this medicine?
Yeah.
Like there's some sort of beacon.
Yeah, yeah. There's a strong beacon, magnetism, whispers, breadcrumbs. There's like these little things that a lot of people just don't feel or see or experience because they're so locked into their external environment. This like what's going on out there, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening next week. All the we've as a society we're very disassociated, frozen. We're up in our minds, like we live from here. A lot of people do. The medicine work is like about coming down, 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 feeling your feet, feeling your legs, feeling your body, sitting down, breathing, feeling like, okay, how do I feel right now? Yeah, there's something going on in my body. Should I have a little look at that? Okay. Like, like that stuff. That's like the really human stuff that we forgot because we're in really strong, masculine, analytical, like action, do all these things like that, innit? The medicine can uncouple you from that for a time, and then you can choose then whether you want to continue doing that or not. It gives you the choice.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice until you don't have a choice until you have a choice,
Well, you don't understand the choice until you have all the options laid out in front of you.
Yeah.
And if people think now that they're choosing to live the way that they're living and they're choosing to go to work every morning.
Yeah.
And in reality, you're not. There's no alternative being presented to you.
Yeah.
And until that alternative is presented to you, you will forever be stuck in this cycle of control. And that's the thing. Yeah. So if you're the shaman that just lays out the menu
Yeah.
and make your choice.
Yeah.
And then at least you're not just existing, you're making a conscious decision to live the way that you want to live,
Yeah.
rather than just trundling along subconsciously like an out of control train.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope it does, and I hope it really sort of brings us back. So for anybody that wants to sort of experience Kambo, and wants to sort of explore a little bit more, where do they find you? How do they? I know you're based in South Wales, aren't you?
Yeah, South Wales near Swansea. Yeah, if you want to find me, I have an Instagram called I am Alexander44, or my email is alexander@sacredprayer.co.uk.
Right. So anybody that's interested, by all means, get in contact. I'm sure, as you've heard over the past 2 hours, that Alex is a very welcoming guy and very knowledgeable, and would be able to hold a space for whatever healing that you're searching for. I want to just take a moment. I massively appreciate you coming on, Alex. I find this whole arena, because of the way it's helped me, so important and so special, and so sacred, to the point where I think it should be an option for everybody to experience. And yeah, I just want to appreciate it. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on and speak about this. You're very awesome. And I'm so glad that you beat the crack addiction, and now you've got on to being addicted to helping people, which is even better.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, I appreciate you.
And yeah, so thank you, everybody, and see you next time.